All right, guys, happy Sunday. Live stream should be starting right now. Hope you guys all have had a good day so far. Super excited to talk about some NFL Week 15 main slate. I like this one. It's a really interesting slate. We got some news to go over, but there are even more good running backs in play now. So it's turning out to be a really interesting one. But yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, new to the live stream, and my name's DK, how the stream works is we'll take a look at news so far with actives and inactives, I want to go over a couple pieces of news. We'll take a look at the Vegas odds and then kind of give a position-by-position breakdown of where I'm looking, again, for cash plays, for GPP plays, and then get to questions at the end. Again, we have 1 hour, so I will get to all your questions at the end. So let's jump into what we know so far. So some news from the Dolphins. They're going to be shorthanded. So no Gesicki, no Devontae Parker, and no Jakeem Grant. I think, those Miami value wide receivers are in play. But are they a must? I don't know. For me, I probably prefer the Saints wide receivers with no Michael Thomas. But those Dolphins cheap wide receivers are definitely more viable. Guys like Bowden, guys like Collins. Yeah, they are for sure viable. And then for the Cowboys, we got pretty surprising news here. Ezekiel Elliott is out. He's inactive. So this makes Tony Pollard firmly in play as one of the better running back plays of the slate. Reason being is, again, he should get a majority of the touches. So Tony Pollard jumped from 30% of the touches to probably 80-90%. And at 5.2K, he was cheaper than Zeke Elliott. He was cheaper than Zeke anyway. The reason people weren't super high on Zeke to begin with was because the snaps were kind of getting somewhat split, right? It was like a 60-40 split last game. So Tony Pollard should get a majority of the work here at 5.2K. I think he is one of the better running back plays of the day. DK are my initials. I go by DK. Not just because of Draftkings. Yeah, DK are my initials, and that's kind of what I go by. But okay, let's take a look at these Vegas odds, guys. So we have Houston, we have the Colts. It's a 51.5 over under. The Colts are 7.5 point favorites. We have Bears, Vikings of 47 over under. The Vikings are 3-point favorites. Lions and Tennessee Titans of 53.5 over under. The Titans are 8.5 point favorites in this one. Jags and Ravens is a 49 over under. The Ravens are currently 13-point favorites. Patriots, Dolphins, this one should be ugly. 40.5 are 1-point favorites. Both teams are missing some pieces. That one should be pretty low scoring. Let's see. 49ers and Cowboys are 45.5 over under. The 49ers are 4-point favorites. We have Seahawks. We have Washington of 44 over under. Seahawks are 6-point favorites. Bucks and Falcons of 49.5 over under. Tampa Bay 6.5-point favorites. Jets and Rams is a 44.5 over under only, but the Rams are 17-point favorites. Eagles, Cardinals, 49.5 over under. Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites. And then late night ham here. I think this one will be a good one. Chiefs, Saints, a 53 over under. Chiefs are 3-point favorites. But again, Drew Brees is back for the Saints. Definitely a big boost to a lot of those pieces on the New Orleans offense. Michael French with a $5 super chat, man. Thank you. Guys, again, super chats not necessary at all, but greatly appreciated. I really do appreciate the support. Favorite stack, and we'll get to some questions at the end. But favorite stack in the moment, I kind of like the New Orleans stack, even though it's gonna be popular. It's just really cheap, right? Kamara's underpriced. The receivers, no Michael Thomas, are too cheap. So I think probably the optimal stack is New Orleans. All right, let's start with quarterback today, guys. Oh, one more. Lincoln Smith, wow, $20 super chat, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the info and breakdowns you provide. Man, that is so generous of you. Thank you so much, seriously. Wow, that is too much, but thank you again, seriously. Let's talk about quarterbacks here, guys. So Patrick Mahomes, 7.9K. I think he is firmly in play at the top. There's a decent amount of value on this slate we'll go over. Mahomes, what we know, has a pretty high floor and high ceiling. And this one, a 53 over under. There's really no downside to say about Mahomes other than, 7-9, you're going to have to pay a premium for him. But it's just such a safe play if you can get to him. And again, you have Hill, you have Kelsey. That you can pair him with if you want to. You have some cheap Saints if you want to run it back in that direction. So I think Mahomes firmly in play in both formats. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. I really like the quarterbacks at the top again It's basically been the same thing for me every week. I've been wanting to get one of these expensive quarterbacks in my lineup because there's always been value. I will mention a couple cheap quarterback plays. Again, guys like Breeze, guys like Hurts, maybe a Mitch Trubisky that I think are more in play here. But yeah, Lamar, 7.5K against Jacksonville. You know, what you're going to get out of Lamar, it's basically he's a running back, right? He ran for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns last game. He's just not throwing the ball a ton, 17 and 17 pass attempts in back-to-back games. They're missing a couple pieces at wide receiver. Am I going to pair someone with Lamar Jackson? Probably not. I don't think we have to. So Lamar is kind of, if I play him, I'm just going to use him as a naked Lamar Jackson. I don't think I pair him with anyone, but I do like him. Again, the matchup's great. The only issue I have here is they're pretty big favorites in this one, right? If we go back to Baltimore, they are 13-point favorites. So maybe they take the foot off the gas pedal a bit. Maybe they rely on the running backs a bit more in the second half. But yeah, Lamar firmly in play as well, like his upside. Russell Wilson at 7.3, I'm not going to get to. I think he's more of a contrarian play. I mentioned this in my video. This is probably the lowest owned you'll get a Seattle stack with like Wilson and either Metcalf or Lockett. It's going to be really, really low owned. They still do have upside. It's just matchup actually isn't the best. Washington's been pretty solid defensively. And the Seattle offense has been, not great, a little up and down. If you just look at Russell Wilson's fantasy points the last 4 games, 20, 14, 17, and 23. Again, I think for that reason, people will avoid him. And again, I only make one lineup, so I'm not going to get to Russell Wilson. But I think he comes in at very low ownership with those Seattle receivers, and they still do have upside. Kyler Murray at 7K. Positives here with Kyler Murray are he did run the ball a lot more last game. Ran for 47 yards and 13 attempts. So, why I was avoiding Kyler Murray was just because the fact that he wasn't really running the ball. Again, that shoulder injury felt like it was bothering him. Ran the ball 13 times last game. So that's better to see that he's running it more. That's why we like Kyler Murray, right? That floor of the rushing ability. The matchup against Philly is solid. I think he's a fine play. Again, I think he goes maybe a little bit lower owned as well. I don't think he's going to be super, super popular, but Kyler still has upside. And again, you're getting him at a discount off of a month ago when he was in like the 8K range. So Kyler, kind of like Russell Wilson, I'm probably not going to get to, but they're going to be pretty low owned. Obviously, like the pairing there with DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun Watson at 6.8K, I think is a pretty nice play in the mid-range. Definitely one of my favorite plays. And the reason I always bring it up is just because Houston's always trailing. This defense is terrible. So that's what you want with your quarterback, right? You want them to fall behind a couple scores, so they just have to air it out. And they just kind of abandon the run game. And that's literally kind of what's been happening here with Houston. So he's got some rushing upside as well. Not as much as guys like Lamar or Kyler, but he can still go out and get you 30 to 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So Watson in play. Again, this Colts defense has been struggling recently, so I do like him. He does have Brandon Cooks back, maybe a slight boost there. I think he is one of the better plays in the mid-range for Deshaun Watson. This next tier of quarterbacks, I'm probably not going to get to Tannehill at 6.7. The reason being is just the Tennessee offense, it depends on the game flow, right, with him and Derrick Henry. So if Tennessee falls behind, you want to look to this passing attack. If they're playing from ahead, it's going to be a heavy dose of the ground game. So you kind of need the good game script for Tannehill. Like, there's been games where he's aired it out 45 times. But in games they're playing from ahead, 22, 24, they're just not going to throw it a ton if they're playing from a lead. So, and 6.7 too, I would feel just more comfortable with other quarterbacks. So, not saying Tannehill's out of play, but again, you kind of do need the game script there. Brady's been up and down at 6.6, but the matchup's solid here. You have 3 guys you can pair him with at the wide receiver position. I think he does bounce back here after a bad game there against Minnesota. I think he's a fine play in the mid-range as well. Goff at 6.3. The reason I'm not going to get to him is just because I'm not fully confident the Jets can score enough to make the Rams have to air it out. I'm not going to get to Kirk Cousins either. Obviously, no Taysom Hill with Drew Brees back. And then we get to the cheap quarterback. So there's 3 guys I'll mention here that I have interest in. One is Drew Brees, and I actually like him a good amount of 5.9K. He was activated off the IR. I think, some people might avoid him because we haven't seen him in, 4 or 5 weeks. But it's just the matchup here. Like, this matchup against Kansas City, it's amazing because they should be playing from behind. If they are, they're going to have to air it out even more. The downside of Drew Brees is, maybe they still have some plays involved with Taysom Hill, right? They will bring him into the red zone at times, so that does hurt Brees. But like I said, this is a game they should be playing from behind. It's a 53 over under. There should be a good amount of points scored in this one. I do like Drew Brees as a cheap option. I think he is one of the better cheap quarterback plays of the slate. Philip Rivers, I always mention him. I never play him, but he's been okay, and the matchup's great there against Houston if you want to go there. Jalen Hurts is also, I think, going to be a pretty popular cheap play, and I think he's firmly in play as well, just because the rushing upside, right? 106 yards in the ground the last game. Now, are we going to get 100-plus yards in the ground again this game? Probably not, but 5.9K, you don't need a ton for him to pay off that salary, and if he's going to get you like 50 to 60 yards in the ground, that's already a pretty high floor for a guy this cheap. So Hurts, another value play I like. And then finally, Trubisky at 5.5K. Probably my least favorite of the three, but still viable. Like, he's been pretty decent last 3 games, 21, 14, and 24 24 fantasy points. The matchup is pretty solid here. Again, completion percentage, he's been decent. 76, 72 completion percentage. He's a guy at times can get you 20 to 30 yards in the ground. So Trubisky is a fine value option too. I probably do prefer Breeze. I probably prefer Hurts. But he's in play if you want to get a little bit different. Below that, I just don't want to play New England. Matt Ryan you can take a shot on him in GPPs. He's going to be low owned, but he's not been good recently. And I think that's it. So again, recapping quarterback, I like the guys at the top, obviously, right? So like Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. Like if you want to get Wilson or Kyler Murray as slightly more contrarian plays. In the mid-range, a couple guys I like. I think Brady's pretty decent. And then, again, we get to like the cheap options, Breeze, Hurts, Mitch Trubisky. That's where I'm looking at for quarterback on this one. Okay, let me borrow those crowns. Hello. Haskins throwing for 300. I don't think I can do Haskins. DK the GOAT, what's up, bro? What's up, man? Good to see you guys in here. All right, let's move on to running back. Real quick, guys, I'll ask, if you enjoy this content, to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are already over 200 viewers on this live stream, so would greatly, greatly appreciate, guys, if you'd hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. Running back is key on the slate. This is where the slate's going to be where it's going to be won. There are a lot of good running back plays today. Like, I would say 6 or 7 really, really good running backs that I like. So we'll start at the top. Derrick Henry at 9.5K, definitely in play. If you guys watch my NFL content, you know how I feel about Derrick Henry. I'm not a fan. He has such a low floor, but will break the slate. He's broken the slate like 2 times in the last 3 games, or last 3 weeks. The matchup's great, so I'm not going to talk you off Derrick Henry. 9.5K, he could definitely get it done. It's just, again, you do kind of need the game script here. If for some chance or for some reason Tennessee falls behind, let's just say they fall behind a couple of scores, they will, kind of phase out Derrick Henry. So that is the risk with Derrick Henry. I think he's still in play, though. And again, the December Derrick Henry narrative, like he usually crushes in December. So I'm not going to talk you off him if you go there. I think he's a good option in both formats. Dalvin Cook's going to be a fade for me, just a contrarian option, just because the matchup. He's still going to get the touches. He's still involved in the passing game. He'll be low owned. I just prefer other running backs for cheaper. I think there's better running back plays, point per dollar, for a lot cheaper than Cook. And that's the reason I'm not going to go to him. Now, Kamara, he's my favorite play. I think he's like everyone's favorite play on this slate. He's going to be super, super chalk, and I'm fine eating the chalk. The reason being, again, Drew Brees playing, just a huge boost to Kamara. The reason we weren't on Kamara during Taysom Hill, those 3 or 4 weeks of Taysom Hill is because they just weren't throwing the ball a ton. And it's weird to say, but for Kamara as a running back, you want them to fall behind because he's better catching the ball. And Drew Brees can't really throw it downfield a ton. So it's going to be a lot of dump offs to guys like Kamara, short passes to guys like Sanders, Traquan Smith. Love Kamara in both formats. He's probably my favorite play of the slate. Again, he's going to be really popular. There's enough good running back plays where I guess you don't necessarily have to play him, but for me, I will be playing Kamara. I think he is the best point per dollar play on this slate. All right, let's move on to Jonathan Taylor, who I think is, again, firmly in play here at 7.2K. The attempts have gone up for him, 22, 13, and 20 rush attempts the last 3 games. He's getting involved in the passing game, and like I said, always, Houston is terribly defensively. So Jonathan Taylor, yes, I think definitely in play in both formats. The one downside with Taylor is they still will give Nyheim Hines some touches, so it's not like he's the true bell cow back, but Taylor, I expect probably 15 to 20 touches in the ground with a few targets through the air. I think he's a decent play in both formats. Robinson, I'll be avoiding him against Baltimore. Now, David Montgomery, I kind of like his contrarian option here at 7K. I think he goes overlooked with there just being, Kamara above him, Cam Akers below him, and then you have cheap running back plays with guys like Tony Pollard, guys like Fournette. So Montgomery, I think, goes overlooked, but he's had 3 straight games of 28, 27, and 27 fantasy points. He's involved in the passing game. The matchup's good. The one downside I will say is not been getting as many carries. Like early on in the season, he was a guy getting 15, 20-ish carries. They haven't been great carries-wise, like 11 and 11, 2 of the last 3 games. And the fact that for some reason, I don't know why, but they're getting Cordarrelle Patterson more involved in the running game, it hurts Montgomery a bit. So I don't think he's an optimal play at running back, but I do like him as kind of a pivot, right? A pivot off of Kamara, a pivot off of a chalky Cam Akers. So those guys can be a lot more popular than Montgomery. I still think Montgomery can get you there, but I don't think he's an optimal play. I think he's a nice pivot, a contrarian pivot off of those guys. Sanders at 6'9", I'm not going to get to. Chris Carson, I'll avoid at 6'8" as well. Then we get Cam Akers at 6'6". So I think he's going to be one of the more popular plays of the slate. 21 and 29 rush attempts last couple of games. So he is turning into their bell cow back after it being a 3-headed monster most of the season. Now, can we trust Sean McVay? I'm still a little bit hesitant here with Cam Akers. So we've just seen it before, right? Early in the season, Cam Akers had 10 carries in a game, and Sean McVay said, we got to get him more involved. And the next game, he did not play. So, yeah, it's really good to see that he's had 21 and 29 carries. It's still a little uneasy feeling for me with Cam Akers. But if we get 25 plus touches from him against the Jets in a game they should be playing from ahead, I think he is a really, really good play in the mid-range. It's just, again, I still think there's just a slight uneasy feeling for me because McVay is his coach. Now, DeAndre Swift, I like too. I'll put him in the same category as a guy like David Montgomery. He's going to be low-owned. He kind of got eased into it that first game back against Green Bay, kind of split the time with AP. I expect the snaps to go up here. The matchup's good. He's involved in the pass game. He's clearly their best running back, and he's going to be overlooked because there's a lot of good running back plays this slate. So Swift and David Montgomery, I like as pivots off of these chalky guys if you want to get different, right? So Swift, Montgomery, I like as contrarian options. Again, Zeke Elliott, he's out. So we'll talk about Tony Pollard. I think he is one of the better cheap running back plays of the slate. I think he gets kind of bell cow work here. The matchup, sure, maybe not necessarily the best, but it's just the price point thing with Tony Pollard, who we'll get to in a sec. Again, no Ronald Jones. That's why Fournette firmly in play for value as well. The Baltimore running backs, you can go there with Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Mark Ingram is inactive. Again, this is a game they should be playing from ahead. Dobbins, the more talented back. The downside here with these Baltimore backs is they're not really involved in the passing game just because Baltimore doesn't pass a ton. So they kind of are touchdown dependent, and the fact that they will utilize 2 backs here is still again, you kind of got to guess right and which one scores. So with Dobbins and with Gus Edwards, yes, they're in play. I probably like some other running backs a little bit more. All right, let's move on to the cheaper running backs. So, yeah, 2 guys I want to mention here. Tony Pollard, 5.2K. Like him a good amount. No Zeke Elliott. He should be kind of the bell cow back here. And he's a talented runner. He just hasn't really had an opportunity this season to really be their bell cow back. So I do like Tony Pollard a lot here, 5.2. I think he's one of the best cheap plays on the slate. He's involved in the pass game. Again, I expect him to be out there basically the entire time. So really like Tony Pollard. And then finally, I want to mention Leonard Fournette at 4.5K against Atlanta. Bruce Arians reader that Fournette is prepped for the start. So with no Ronald Jones, I assume he's going to get a good amount of the touches. Now they still have, LaShawn McCoy, but how many touches they want to give to him? It's kind of just a price point thing with Fournette. Even if he only gets 60, 65% of the snaps at 4.5, again, you don't need a lot for him to pay off the salary. He's involved in the passing game. Sure, he's not been, they haven't really utilized him a ton. He was a healthy scratch the other day, but I think he is a pretty solid value play here at 4.5K. And then, for me, that's really it. I don't think I'd go to anyone else. There are a couple other options here. You look to Gus Edwards too at 4.4, no Mark Ingram. Maybe he gets a few more touches in a good matchup. Sony Michel with no Damian Harris, but I just don't want to do it. So that's really it for running back. Again, I want to go over the plays that I really like at the top. You have Derrick Henry if you can get to him. Love Kamara. I think Taylor's a nice play. I like Montgomery and DeAndre Swift as contrarian options. I think Cam Akers is one of the best point per dollar plays, assuming he gets same role the last couple of games. And then the cheap options, it's Pollard and it's Leonard Fournette for me. All right, let's now move on to wide receiver, guys. So wide receiver at the top, we have Tyreek Hill, 8.8K. I mean, he's just had enormous upside. Like last 5 games, look at his stat lines. Like 25, 36, 30, 60, 14, and 26 fantasy points. Targets have been insane for him. 18, 14, 15, 11, and 7. I like Tyreek Hill. I don't know if I get him in cash because of the price, but if you can get him in GPPs, again, the upside is through the roof for this guy. So there's no downside to say about Tyreek other than just the price, right? It's just a price thing. Can you feel comfortable with enough value to get him in there? Metcalf is a guy I'm going to fade. Again, him and Lockett are just contrarian options on the slate. They're going to be super, super low owned, but I'm just not going to do it. Again, I play one lineup only, and I'm not going to get that different for my one lineup. Ridley with no Julio, the price did come up to 8.2. I think it's fine, but I'm not really prioritizing him either. The guy that I like kind of at the top here is DeAndre Hopkins, 7.9. I think he goes a little bit overlooked. 13 and 11 targets in back-to-back games. This guy has enormous upside. The price coming down. Again, no Darius Slay. Doesn't really matter a ton, to be honest. Slay's kind of been getting burned this year. But Hopkins is a guy that I like below 8K. I think he possesses upside. You know, he has been up and down. The floor with him is somewhat low at times. Like we've seen some single-digit fantasy point games from DeAndre Hopkins. But I just like the price of him at the top. Like he's probably my favorite point per dollar guy at the top here is DeAndre Hopkins. A.J. Brown at 7.6. Well, if you want to get off I think, somewhat popular Derrick Henry, you can look to leverage it with the passing game. So maybe just go to A.J. Brown, right? Because if Tennessee does fall behind, A.J. Brown is a guy that has been super consistent in the passing game. 16, 25, 11, 27 fantasy points. Targets have been solid for him, averaging about 8 targets a game. I don't think he's a priority for me, but a way to kind of get different if you want to get off again, I think a somewhat chalky Derrick Henry. Robinson, 7.4. Again, I like these Chicago guys. I think they're going to be more contrarian. Again, they were somewhat popular that last slate. I was really high on them, but I think they do go a little bit overlooked. Guys like Montgomery, guys like Robinson, Trubisky. Again, there's probably, with Breeze, with Hurts, they'll be a little bit more popular than Trubisky, but I still have interest in these Chicago guys. Robinson, averaging like double-digit targets a game. He's got the upside. Again, basically 30 fantasy points in 2 of the last 4 games. I like him there kind of as a tier below those guys at the top. With Jefferson, with Thielen, the Minnesota wide receivers, I'm not going to get to them. The positives with those guys are when Minnesota drops back to pass, it's going to probably one of those guys. Or Irv Smith, right? It's those two are the tight ends, so that is the positives. Like, there's not a lot of other pieces in the offense they look to, but I'm not going to get to them for my one lineup. Cooper Kupp at 7K and Robert Woods at 6.8. The same thing I'll say about Jared Goff. I'm not super confident that the Jets can score enough points where the Rams have to air it out. Now, I said that 5 or 6 weeks ago when the Chiefs played the Jets, and you saw what Mahomes did, right? He had an enormous game, 5 touchdowns, so they're not out of play, but for me, I'm going to look elsewhere. Same thing I'll say about Lockett at 6.7. Now, McLaurin at 6.6, kind of like him as I don't think he's going to be super popular. He's had back-to-back kind of bad games for him, 3 and 4 fantasy points, but before that, he was really, really consistent. He is clearly the best wide receiver. The targets have been pretty solid for him. The matchup's good. They probably will be playing from behind this one. So McLaurin, I do like as a lower owned play. And then the Tampa Bay wide receivers are all in play. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown all look pretty decent in a great matchup there against Miami. If you want to pair 1 or even 2 with Tom Brady, I think that's perfectly fine. Cooper at 6.4 is a decent play in the mid-range, but probably for a guy like Ayuk on the opposite side at 6.3. Just because targets with him, right? 10, 14, 9, and 16 targets. They're missing a couple pieces offensively, right? So he should be their number 1 wide receiver in a good matchup. This guy has really come on late in the season. So Ayuk, I think, is one of the better plays in the mid-range. Now, I think he will be pretty popular. Definitely not a must play. Again, I think he'll be one of the chalkier plays in this range, but I think he looks really, really good for his price. Again, mentioned all the Tampa Bay wide receivers. There's no Galladay, so Marvin Jones Jr. and Hawkinson, I think, are really nice plays in the mid-range. 5.7 for Marvin Jones Jr., 12, 12, and 8 targets the last 3 games with no Galladay. He's been their number 1 wide receiver. This is a game probably playing from behind. Detroit's defense has been terrible. Like Houston, Detroit is usually playing from behind, which is good for the passing attack. So I like Marvin Jones Jr. 5.7. I don't know if he's going to be super popular, but if you wanted to go kind of a game stack here and go Derrick Henry and then run it back with like a Stafford, Marvin Jones Jr. connection. I think that's a nice way to go. So Jones Jr. is a guy I really like there in the mid-range. Cooks at 6K is back. He should be the number one wide receiver. Like I said, Houston is like always playing from behind, so I do like him. I don't know if he's going to be super, super popular because people are going to look at the box scores, but again, I think Cooks is a nice play there in the mid-range. Below this, like this next tier of wide receivers is kind of gross for me. I don't think I really get to anyone. Like T.Y.'s finally come on, finally late in the season, but now the price is at 5.5. I think is still in play, but you're going to have to pay premium for him. Again, I don't really want to play DJ Chark against Baltimore. It's just like this range of wide receiver is probably one I'm going to stay away from. It's either, guys at the top, the guys in the mid-range, or like right below the guys at the top. But then this range is kind of gross until we get to Emmanuel Sanders here for 2. I think him and Traquan Smith are 2 of the better value plays of the slate. Well, the reason being, again, Michael Thomas on the IR. So it's going to be Sanders. It's going to be Traquan Smith. Is the top 2 wide receivers here. This is a game they should be playing from behind against Kansas City. Kansas City, again, they are always putting up points, so you got to think the Saints are going to have to score here. So Sanders, Traquan Smith, I like a lot for cheap. I think they're going to be somewhat popular, but 2 of my favorite plays for value. Chad Hansen at 4.2, I still think is in play. Even with Brandon Cooks back, he's still going to line up out wide. It's going to be him and Cooks out wide with Kiki Cutie in the slot. 7 targets in back-to-back games, and like I said, Houston's always playing from behind, so Hansen, yeah, he's still a viable cheap play. Kendrick Bourne at 4.1 is definitely viable. Let's go to San Francisco really quick here. So, where are the 49ers? No Deebo Samuel. Again, that's why Ayuk should be clearly the number 1 guy, but Kendrick Bourne should fill into the number 2 role. 4.1K. He's had 5, 6, and 7 targets in back-to-back games. Would expect those to go up a bit. Again, the matchup's good, so Kendrick Bourne firmly in play here for value for me at that price. All right, let's move on now to kind of the 3K range. So Mooney, I'll always mention him. He's still out there a good amount of the game. He's still running the deep routes. He hasn't really had a breakout game yet, but I think we probably will get one from him before the season ends. Mooney is still someone I'm looking to there for value. And then we got to talk about the Miami receivers, right? So no Gesicki, no Devontae Parker, no Jakeem Grant. So and Preston Williams on the IR. So should be Lynn Bowden, Matt Collins. These guys should be, the number 1 and number 2 receivers. 3.6K for Lynn Bowden. He had the big game last game, 7 catches and 9 targets. I think he's definitely in play for value. Now, I think the reason I prefer the Saints wide receivers is just this game could be pretty ugly, right? A 40 over under. Both teams are missing pieces offensively. Both teams are run-first teams. Like Miami doesn't really like to air it out a ton. Neither does New England. So if this gets like a close game, you could just see it kind of being a slugfest, ugly. Maybe they don't have to throw it a ton. So that's the only reason I do prefer the Saints value wide receivers to Lynn Bowden. But I think he's definitely in play at 3.6. Same thing with Matt Collins at 3.5. These are guys that are for sure in play. And he had 5 catches and 9 targets. So both Hollins, both Bowden are in play here for value on the Miami side, with them missing their top 2 targets in Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant. Let's see. A couple other plays I want to mention, and then we can move on to tight end. So Denzel Mims at 3.5. Matchup's terrible, but Jets are always playing from behind. He's got some big play upside. He hasn't really had a huge game yet, but I think he is still in play for value if you need someone cheap. Same thing with Gallup at 3.5. He's out there basically the entire game. Targets have been solid for him, 8, 11, and 6 targets. So sure, the floor is low with Gallup. Like he's a guy that doesn't have a high floor, but he's a guy that can go out and get you 20-plus fantasy points. And at 3.5, there's not a lot of guys in this price range that can do that. So Gallup, I like for value as well. Below that, a couple other guys I want to mention. So Traquan Smith at 3.2K. Again, it should be him. It should be Emmanuel Sanders with no Michael Thomas. He was already involved in this passing game, like back-to-back games of 6 targets. And with no Michael Thomas, there's going to be more to go around. So Smith, Emmanuel Sanders, I like quite a bit here for value. Again, 2 of my favorite value wide receivers there in a game they should be playing from behind. And like those 2, I like Kamara a lot. I'm really high in the Saints. Again, that's not a contrarian take at all. We know the Saints are going to be popular today. Below that, that's probably it for me. Like, I don't think I get to anyone else. Like, I just don't want to mess with Atlanta wide receivers. They continue to troll me. Like Christian Blake, when Julio goes down like mid-game, it's Christian Blake that fills in and basically plays the entire game. And then you would figure that Christian Blake is the guy that would get a majority of the snaps the next game. But no, they always troll and go with like Powell or Treadwell or Zacchaeus. So I don't want to mess with the Atlanta value wide receivers. One of them will have a decent game, but they always troll me. Like I've played Christian Blake a couple times and it just doesn't work out. So I'm not going to mess with that. Yeah, I think that's really it for me, guys. So let's move on to tight end. We have about 30 minutes until lock. I'll ask one more time, guys, if you enjoy the content, to hit that like button. I think we are over 300 viewers. 70 likes. Let's try to reach 100 likes before the end of the show. Would greatly appreciate that. Again, guys, I'll get to questions at the end, so don't worry. I will try to get to everyone's question. Tight end, Kelsey at 8K. You're going to have to pay a premium for him, but I think it might be worth it. Tight end has been pretty ugly this year. And there's really been a couple top guys. So we have Kelsey, we have Waller. Waller's not on this slate, so Kelsey's the clear guy. The targets have just been so like 12, 10, 8, 12, 10 targets. He has a super high floor and a high ceiling. Tight end, again, there's not a lot of great options, so I think you can get to Kelsey. I think he is one of the better plays of the slate. Obviously, you're going to have to pay premium, but I think there is enough value to do it. And he, for me, is my favorite bring back. So what I'm doing, I'm running a Saints stack, and I'm bringing it back with Travis Kelsey. I know what's going to be, again, a popular build, but I just like that tight end's weak. Travis Kelsey is a guy that can go out and get you 25 to 30 fantasy points. So really like Travis Kelsey. If you can get to him at the top. Andrews at 5.5. Just Baltimore's just not throwing the ball a ton. I'm probably not going to do it. Now, Hawkinson I like in the mid-range, 5.2. If I'm not going to get to Kelsey, I think I go TJ Hawkinson. Reason being, targets with him. 7, 8, 9, 11 targets with no Kenny Galladay. It's him, it's Marvin Jones Jr. And like I said, Detroit, like Houston, seems to always be playing from behind, which is good. Like, you want that for the passing attack. So Hawkinson, I like at 5.2. I think it's a nice price for him. And no Gesicki, I don't know if I trust the Miami backup tight ends. Like, they have Shaheen, they have Smythe. They'll utilize a couple guys, so I don't think I want to take a dart throw there. I just don't think it's worth it. Gronkowski at 4.2 is fine, but I would probably rather get to the receivers for a little bit more. Logan Thomas, I think, is decent at 4K. The matchup is solid here against Seattle. He's running a ton of routes. He's out there, again, the entire game. He's a back-to-back pretty solid games. 2 games ago, he had the big game against Pittsburgh, so Logan Thomas firmly in play for value as well for me. Goddard is probably the one Philly receiver I have interest in. 10, 7, and 6 targets. Again, they're probably not going to throw a ton. Hurst is a guy that, kind of more reliant on his legs, but Goddard is the one guy I think I would look to if you want to pair someone with Jalen Hurts. Other options like Juju Smith has been really struggling recently. He had a nice start to the season. Matchup's good. I think it's a fine contrarian play, but probably not someone I look to in like a cash game setting. Irv Smith with no Kyle Rudolph is definitely viable here at 3.6, and he is their pass-catching tight end. Like I said, when Minnesota drops back, it's either going to Thielen, Jefferson, or the tight end. And no Rudolph. Irv Smith should be out there majority of the game. He's their best pass-catching tight end anyway. I think he's a fine option there at 3.6. Jared Cook's at 3.4. I think is viable too. Again, with Drew Brees playing, it actually is a boost to Jared Cook. I think he's viable, but again, how many Saints pieces do you want? So, I have interest in a lot. I like Brees, I like Kamara, I like those 2 value receivers, and I like Jared Cook too. So, again, I'm really high in the Saints. Not a contrarian take, but I want a good amount of exposure to them. Other options at tight end, Reed at 3.2. He's their pass-catching tight end. He'll play about half the game. Matchup solid against Dallas. And if you need a punt with Reed, I think that's okay. Dalton Schultz, too. Same thing. He's out the majority of the game. I think he's a fine punt option. And then Cole Kmet, too, at 3K. He's been getting more targeted recently in 7 and 7 targets in back-to-back games. I think he's a fine punt option as well. Below that, that's probably it for me. Again, you can take a dart throw on one of those Miami tight ends, but I'm probably not going to do it. So, all right. Let's move on to defense. And defense, well, the defenses at the top, if you can get to them, I think look good. Obviously, the Rams, 4.5K is a lot, but going up against the Jets, the Rams defense has been amazing recently. So I love the Rams if you can get to them. If you can get to them is key. Also, I have interest in the Ravens defense. They're aggressive defense. They get a lot of sacks. 3.8K, have interest in them. Dolphins at 3.7, I think are fine too. I probably prefer getting to the Ravens, the Rams a little bit more just because, again, with this Dolphins and Miami game, it's probably going to be an ugly game, a slugfest, running the ball a ton. Neither team likes to pass, and defenses, most of the time, they get their points from dropbacks. So Dolphins are fine, but I probably would rather get to the Ravens or the Rams for a little bit more. Other defensive options, let's see. I don't want to go to the Chiefs with Drew Brees back. Seahawks against Washington, I think, are fine at 3-1, kind of in the mid-range. The 49ers are firmly in play here. Again, no Zeke. I think they're a decent option, kind of in the mid-range. I think the Patriots are in play too, and Miami missing basically all their pieces offensively. So I think the Patriots will be somewhat popular, but I think they are a pretty nice play in the mid-range. Below that, and then you kind of get to the cheap defenses where there's really no standout cheap defense. So I think, go with what fits with your lineup, right? If you only have like 2.3K remaining, then just take a shot on one of these defenses and hope they don't kill you. Like, that's usually what I go by. If I'm like don't have a ton of money, I'll just play a super cheap defense and hope they can get me like 3 or 4 fantasy points and they don't get me like negative. What defenses I think are viable? Cowboys 2-7, 49ers offense, again, they've been struggling. I think they're okay to punt with. And then you get really to the like down here, like Falcons, Lions, Jets. I'm not like super excited about any of them, but it's just a price point where I think you could take a shot if you want to. But yeah, really all in all defenses, the defenses at the top, I feel like you feel the most comfortable with, but you're going to have to pay premiums for them. There are a couple options we talked about in the mid-range, but that really wraps up for me. So we got about 20 minutes until lock, guys. Justin with the $5 super chat, man. Thank you so much, dude. That's greatly, greatly appreciated. You like Rivers for GPP? I think he's a nice contrarian play at quarterback. Not a ton of people get to him. I probably prefer some other quarterbacks like Breeze, like Hurst. Or Hurts, I should say. But yeah, I think he's a nice way to get different. Matchup solid. Great content, DK. Let's get it today. Thank you, man. Really, really do appreciate the support there with the $5 super chat. But all right, guys. So let's get to a core for like a cash game setting. And man, it's tough because there's so many good running back plays on the slate. But I think for me, my favorite and the guy that seems to be the most popular is Alvin Kamara. So Kamara is the guy that I feel the best about there at 7.4K. I think that is just underpriced. Other options at running back. So this is where it gets tricky, right? We have Henry, we have Taylor, we have Cam Akers, we have Pollard, we have Fournette. There's a lot of good options here. I'm going to slide in Cam Akers, and I'm a little uneasy about this because McVay's his coach, but based on what we've seen the last couple games and based on the fact that they're big favorites, I could see Cam Akers having a pretty nice game here. So I'm going to go Kamara, I'm going to go Akers. And then I do want to go one more running back, and this one's tough for me. Like, do I go Pollard? Do I go Fournette? I think Pollard is clearly the better running back than Fournette, but Fournette is also cheaper and probably in the better matchup. So it's so tough. Like, Pollard, again, I feel probably better about his touches too. I think this one's basically a coin flip for me. So if you have enough to get to Pollard, that's fine. Or you go to Fournette. I think you play one of those value guys. I'll plug in Fournette, but I like Tony Pollard too. Again, you got to make some tough calls at running back. And then, at running back too, if you want to get contrarian, there's other, like even Derrick Henry at the top, right? I'm really scared about fading Derrick Henry. Sure, he's 9.5K, but he has enormous upside in a great matchup. So I am very, very scared about fading Henry. You have Jonathan Taylor against Houston. And then you have, again, a couple of contrarian pieces I like in like Montgomery and like DeAndre Swift. And also, again, Tony Pollard. So there's like 7 really good running back plays. You can only play 3. I'm going to go with these 3, but again, you got to make some tough calls at running back. And then I'm going to give you one wide receiver. I want to go with one of those Saints wide receivers. I just think that they're too underpriced for the role with no Michael Thomas. So Sanders and Traquan Smith, I'll take the discount on Traquan Smith, but I really, really like both. So I'm going to put Traquan Smith in there at 3.2K. I think that it's just too cheap in this matchup in a game that should be playing from behind. So that's what I'm going to go with for core. That's 5.6K remaining. You can go kind of fill out the rest of your lineup from there, but I think that's a nice way to start a cash game lineup. Again, with running backs, there are different ways you can go. So that's where the slate's going to be one at running back. But let's get to some questions now. Swift or Kelsey in the flex? Kelsey. Yeah, Kelsey for sure. Hopkins going to feast on Philly secondary. I really like DeAndre Hopkins at the top. He's my favorite top-tier wide receiver. Hopkins, A.J. Brown, and Robinson, it's DeAndre Hopkins for me. Bowden over Traquan. If you already have Sanders, I still think I go Traquan there. And just the reason being is, like, the Saints are going to have to score a ton of points. I don't see this being an ugly game. I guess anything's possible, but the Chiefs, like, they're going to put up a lot of points. So with no Michael Thomas, like, they're going to have to air it out. And when the top 2 wide receivers for a team are 4.2 and 3.2K respectively with their quarterback back, sure, Drew Brees is not the same quarterback he was in the past. But he's cheap. Wide receivers are cheap. Should be playing from behind. I think I still will give the edge there to Traquan. Let's see. Derrick Henry or Tyreek Hill? So I think Henry is the safer option. Running backs are always safer than wide receivers. So Henry is probably safer because more guaranteed touches. And he has the ability to break the slate, but same with Tyreek Hill. So I think safe option is Henry. Tyreek Hill is going to be low owned just because of his price. So Tyreek Hill is a nice contrarian play at the top, but I think the safe option is Henry. Gus Edwards is a fine play. I think both Baltimore running backs are viable, but I would rather get to the running backs. I would rather play Pollard. I think I'd rather play Fournette too, assuming, again, he kind of gets a majority of the carries. So Henry and Pollard or Akers and Jonathan Taylor, that's really close as well. I guess the first, but you're splitting hairs there. Again, running back is so tough today. Really, guys. I got Henry and Kamara. I like that too. Like, again, Henry at the top. I'm not playing him, but I'm super, super scared as always. I've said that too the last few weeks, and he's completely burned me. So, sure, the price is up on Henry, but he has absolutely enormous upside. Thoughts on Dwayne Haskins? I don't think we have to do it. I don't think so. So, for me, no. Gage for cash. Didn't mention Gage. I think he's a fine play in the slot. Cheap enough price. I think he's okay. I think you can do it. Not my favorite play, but yeah, he's fine. Anyone doing both Saints wide receivers with Kamara? That's what I'm doing. I am doing that. I just think the Saints are way too cheap. Why don't I trust any Tampa Bay wide receivers? Well, they were bad last game. The Tampa Bay offense kind of struggled, but this is a better spot. I think that they're decent options. They're not must plays, but they're good plays in the mid-range. The tricky part with those Tampa Bay wide receivers is which one's going to have a good game, right? They kind of spread it out, so tough to nail down which one's going to have the really good game. Pollard or Fournette for cheap running back. Again, that's really a coin flip for me. Pollard is the better running back. He's the more talented back. Fournette is cheaper. Fournette's in the better matchup. I think Pollard gets more touches. It almost evens out. Like, I think there's an outside chance Tampa Bay could do something weird and maybe go more with McCoy or another running back and just kind of like limit Fournette. It's a little uneasy feeling there too. With Pollard, I don't have an uneasy feeling. Like, he should be out there majority of the game. So it's basically flip a coin there. Hurts, Cooks, or Kyler and Gage for cash. I think I'll go with the first option. Akers or Taylor. I'm going to go Akers. I feel a little bit more comfortable with his touches, so I'm going to go Cam Akers. Do you like Hansen with Cooks back? Yeah, Hansen is still in play. He's going to be out there, line up out wide with Cooks, Kiki Cutie in the slot, so Hansen will play the majority of the game. Houston is always playing from behind, and Hansen's actually a pretty talented wide receiver, so I think he's a nice play for value. Cook or Kmet for tight end? I would rather go Jared Cook. Going to be a lot of sleepers today? I think there will be. Yeah, Montgomery or Robinson? For me, it's Montgomery. How does this look? Let's see. How does this look, DK? Lamar, Henry, Kamara, Shark, Bowden, Mims, Andrews, Pollard, and the Eagles D. Ew. I think it's fine. Again, Mark Andrews. You're pairing Lamar with Mark Andrews. He would probably be the one guy I would pair him with. There's some risk there just because Baltimore hasn't been throwing the ball a ton. Everything else looks decent. Like Mims for value, I think goes a little bit lower owned, but Jets are always playing from behind. Bowden is fine, again, with all his Miami wide receivers out. Who's your quarterback? I'm playing Drew Brees. Again, I'm kind of going with a full Saints stack and running back with Kelsey. Favorite defense? I don't really have one. I don't. I think you go with what works with your lineup. So Montgomery and Kelsey or Henry and Cutie, I'd rather go with the first option. I got Kmet. He's Chicago's go-to tight end. Yeah, I think Kmet's a nice value play at tight end. I do. 7 targets in back-to-back games. Can I play Breeze, Kamara, Traquan, and Sanders? Yeah, you can. That's what I'm doing. So, yeah, I think you definitely can do that. Mike Evans or Lockett? Mike Evans. Traquan or Gage straight up? Straight up Gage, but taking pricing, I like the price better on Traquan at 3.2 than Gage at 4.6. But if its price doesn't matter, I'll go Gage. Favorite flex play, 5,100 or less. 5,100 or less, well, what? Pollard's 52. I would say Pollard, but he's 52. So 5,100. This is kind of like It's not a range I like. I guess Russell Gage out of the slot. And Atlanta's a team that they should be playing from behind too. I'll probably go Gage. I don't really like a lot in this range. I don't. So that, like, again, below 5.2K, like 5.1 to like 4.3 is a range that I'm staying away from. Favorite? Okay, I already went over that. Like any wide receivers from Miami, yeah, Bowden and Matt Collins are definitely in play for value. I personally prefer the Saints wide receivers because I think they have to air it out more. Whereas Miami, New England, that game could be just an ugly game. Both teams like to run it. But yeah, Bowden, Hollins definitely in play. AJ Brown or Akers? I'd rather go Akers. What's up, DK? How's this look for cash? Let's see. Hurst, Kamara, Taylor, Ayuk, Hansen, Ridley, Cook, and Fournette. Jared Cook and Fournette. Okay. Calvin Ridley. I think that's fine. I think it's fine for cash. Ridley is, I don't know if he's necessarily a cash game play at that price, but everything else I'm fine with. Three Saints, big mistake in my opinion. Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to play. You don't have to. I mean, I told you guys what I'm doing. I'm always open with you guys. Like, I'm going kind of a Saints stack. I just think they're underpriced. You don't have to play them, but 4-2 and 3-2 for the top two wide receivers against the Chiefs. Like, if it was a different matchup, if it was a matchup against like a worse team offensively, then I wouldn't be as excited about the Saints. But since they're playing the Chiefs, most likely this game's gonna be a shootout. What's everyone's taking Washington's defense? I think they're still in play. They've been solid. Matchup's not necessarily the best. Chenault, a decent cheap option, fine, but I'm probably not gonna do it. Iffy, it's against Seattle. Yeah, wide receiver 5,200 and under. Again, this range is gross. 5,200 and below, like, I don't like a lot here. So I think it's probably still Gage or Sammy Watkins, but I really don't like that range at all. I feel like Fournette could have overlooked. I don't think that Fournette will play on passing downs because they healthy scratch him for dropping. Possibly, yeah. I mean, again, you don't have to play Fournette. Like, it's Fournette and Tony Pollard. That's basic coin flip gamble, though. There is still some risk with Fournette. There is. Like, I'm a little bit uneasy. I think there's a chance they incorporate McCoy a little bit more. Best cheap quarterback play. I think it's Breeze or Hurts. Lions stack, bring it back with Henry. You like? Yeah, I do. Because Lions, they're always playing from behind. You have Marvin Jones Jr. and Hawkinson. I like quite a bit. Like, if I wasn't playing Kelsey, I'd probably play Hawkinson. How's this? Breeze, Kamara, Akers, Tyreek, Sanders, Smith, Pollard, Ramsey. I like it. I like it a lot. Fournette only needs some yards and TD to pay off. Yeah, I mean, the reason he's in play is the price. If Fournette was like mid 5K range, I probably would look elsewhere. But 4 or 5, he really only needs like 60-ish% of the snaps. So Conklin, Dartho, probably not for me. Thanks, good luck. Of course. I'm so ready. McVay is going to burn you, brother. Watch Henderson go. Yeah, I would not be surprised. I wouldn't. No, I was kind of off McVay in that showdown, or I was off Cam Akers in the showdown site. I wasn't convinced he was going to get the bell cow whirl, and then I got completely burned. Pittman Jr. or Gage. What's Pittman's price? He's at 4.8 against Houston. I think that's close. I think I give the edge to Gage, but that one's really close. 5,500 for utility. I think it's Cam Akers. Or not Cam, Tony Pollard. Yeah, I would go Tony Pollard. I didn't mention Drake, but he is still another running back play that's viable here. But yeah, I would go Tony Pollard in that situation. Is it wrong to stack Kamara, Henry, and Kelsey? No, you can do it. Charlie Edelman with a $5 super chat. Thank you, man. Great work, DK. Glad I found your content. Let's get it. Really, really appreciate the support, man. Thank you so much. T.Y. Hilton firmly in play. He's been really good. Last 3 weeks, he's finally turned it on. Again, Houston cannot stop anyone. So, T.Y., yeah, he's at 5.5. I think he's definitely viable. Breeze, Fournette, Kamara, Ayuk, Sanders, Smith, Kelsey, Akers, Ravens D. Very, very similar to what I have. Gallup or Bowden. I'll go Gallup there. I'm a little bit more comfortable with Dallas's offense. Mostert is the best play in the slate, and no one knows it but me. I think Mostert is fine. He still will compete with touches. Let's go to those San Francisco running backs. I didn't really talk about them. So San Fran, we have Mostert. They still have Russell Wilson. Like Mostert, the last game had 14 carries, 4 targets. Wilson, 11 carries, 3 targets. Tevin Coleman's here. We'll probably get a carry or 2. They have McKinnon that, at times will get involved a little bit. So, yeah, Mostert is going to be lower owned. Again, I prefer other running back plays, but if you want to get a little bit different, I don't hate it. Cardinals D versus Philly D. Probably the Cardinals D. Lamar today, I think Lamar is a nice spend-up option. The reason I'm a little bit hesitant is, can the Jags score enough to really make them put the foot in the gas pedal? What defense should I take if I have 3,200 left? 3,200 left. I think I go the Patriots defense here. I think I go with the Patriots with the Dolphins missing a lot of their pieces. Robinson or AJ Brown? I'll go Robinson there. Hilton or Andrews? TY. Although that's all I need. Okay. Kirk or Gronk? Not really excited about either. I'll go Kirk there. Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, or Kupp for GPP? Allen Robinson. Yeah, just like PJ Washington. PJ Washington, man, he started 2 of 13 from the field. That is like unheard of for a big to shoot 2 of 13. He actually still got us there. I think he finished with 25 fantasy points. Mike Evans torches Atlanta most of the time. Again, I like all the Tampa Bay receivers. So just trying to nail down which one it is going to have the big game is tricky. Jameis Winston, how about Breed? No, I don't think so. McCole Hardman or Jared Cook playing Kelsey? I feel more comfortable with Jared Cook. Tom Brady today, I think Tom Brady's a nice play in the mid-range. I think he has a bounce back. Normally after bad games, we see like a big game from Brady. Flex with 5,700 left. I think it's probably still going to be Tony Pollard for me in that situation. Marvin Jones Jr. is fit. No, it would be Pollard or Marvin Jones Jr. for me. I do really like the Detroit targets with Marvin Jones Jr. and Hawkinson. So, yeah, flex 5,700. Again, I think it's Marvin Jones Jr. or you just spend out a bit for Pollard. I like Murray in a great matchup versus the Eagles. Yeah, Kyler I think goes a little bit overlooked. I think he's a nice GPP play. He's been run the ball. He ran the ball more the last game. Is Chad Hansen a good play? I think he's a decent value play. Even with Cook's back, he's still going to be out the majority of the game. Traquan Smith or Gallup, that's close. That is really close. I'll go Smith, but that's a close one. Lamar Akers, Swift, Traquan, Kiki Cutie, Bowden, Kelsey, Kamara, Ravens. D thoughts? I think that's a perfectly fine lineup. You're running the naked Lamar. You got Kelsey. Yeah, I like it. Kiki Cutie's not someone like super excited about. His role doesn't change a ton in the slot, but in that range is kind of gross. So, and Ravens defense, again, they're an aggressive defense. So yeah, I like that. Guys, we're at 100 likes. I want to say thank you again for the support. We had over 300 viewers as well. We got 5 minutes until locks. Let me know if you guys have any more questions. I'm gonna check Twitter just to make sure we don't miss any breaking news. Let's see. Ian Rappaport. Anything else? Jameis Winston's on the COVID list. Doesn't really matter. Okay. I think we're up to date. No breaking news. Is it possible to get Mahomes and Henry into the same lineup, or would you not recommend that? You can do it. There's enough value on the slate you can do it. So, yeah, you're not going to have a ton left over, but, both guys have enormous upside. Eifert thoughts? I don't think we have to. He is cheap. I think he's below 3K. He's 2.9. You can punt with him. You can. But he's not someone I'm like super excited to jam in. Seahawks or Washington? That's tough because Washington's defense is clearly the better defense, but Washington's offense is also not as good as Seahawks offense. I'll go the Seahawks D. Vikings defense against the Bears. You can, but I think I like some other defenses better. I went with both in one of my lineups. Mike Evans or Ayuk. That's close. So Ayuk, I think, will be more popular, but Mike Evans has a ton of upside there against Atlanta. The reason I think Ayuk is probably the safer play is competition for touches, right? There's not a lot of competition for touches. Ayuk's clearly the number one guy, right? So I think Ayuk might be a little bit safer. He will be higher owned, but Mike Evans still possesses upside. It's just he's competing with touches with Brown and with Godwin. Bowden or Traquan, again, I'm going to go Traquan just because I think I'm more confident with the Saints offense passing than I am with Miami's offense. I'm playing Henry, Kamara, and Lamar. Yeah, you can do it. Again, there's enough value. You can do it. Thoughts on Mahomes, Akers, Pollard, Ayuk, Hill, Traquan, Cook, Hilton, Seahawks D. I think that's good. Ayuk, but Evans usually has good games for Atlanta. Yeah, it's close. Again, Ayuk, the reason I go Ayuk is less competition for touches there. Breeze, Henry, Kamara, Hopkins, Sanders, Smith, Irv Smith, Pollard, Patriots D. I like that. Is Rams D a chalk? I don't think they're going to be super chalky because of the price, but they're a really safe defense. For early games, Lamar, Henry, Pollard, Ayuk, Gage, T.Y., Kmet, Jones Jr., Washington defense. I like that. Here's what I got. Breeze, Henry, Pollard, Tyreek, Manuel Sanders, Traquan, Kmet, Kamara, Skins defense. Looks good. Is Mullins in play with? Yeah, I don't think we have to play Mullins. I don't think we have to. Going with Breeze, Kamara, Akers, Smith, Sanders, Kelsey, Pollard, Pats D. I like that. For early games, Lamar, Henry, Pollard, Ayuk, Gage, T. Yep. Bourne or Sanders. Close. I'll go Sanders, but I like both for value. Now, Sanders, I think, will be more popular. So, if you want to get a little bit different, if you want to kind of differentiate yourself from the field, you can go Bourne. He should be the number 2 receiver for San Fran. It's a good matchup. I like both for value. I do. I think they're two of the better value plays of the slate. I'll go Sanders, but that's close. It's close. GBP, Murray, Kamara, Akers, Smith, McLaurin, Hopkins, Kmet, Fournette, Ravens D. Yeah, I like it. Damn, you guys literally got me off Fournette. You don't have to play Fournette. You definitely don't have to. Again, I'm a little bit uneasy. Full disclosure, I do have Fournette in my lineup, but I just have a little uneasy feeling that, there's a chance McCoy gets involved. Maybe Fournette gets limited a bit. It's not a good sign that he was a healthy scratch a couple weeks ago, or was it last week? Was it last week? I think it was. So yeah, it's an uneasy feeling. I think there is risk. So I think probably the safer option is Pollard for a little bit more. Pollard definitely over Fournette. Yeah, Pollard is the more talented running back. He is. It's a price thing with Fournette that makes it close. So on some lineups have Sanders, Kamara, okay to go Bowden there and say, yeah, of course. Bowden is firmly in play for value. He's probably their number 1 wide receiver. David Johnson viable. I don't think we have to do it. Any concerns with Hurts at quarterback? There's concerns. Like, we've only really seen him for like a game and a half. So the reason he's in play is the rushing upside. I don't think he gets over 100 yards again, but at that price, you don't need a ton to pay off. And if he gets like one rushing touchdown, he's basically going to get you there for value. Seahawks D versus Haskins. Yeah, I think so. Mostert takes a 50-yard run to the house today. I'm, again, perfectly fine with Mostert if you want to get different. Miami defense versus Cam. I think Miami defense is solid. Wilson, Fournette, Pollard. Russell Wilson, Fournette, Pollard, Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Cook, Traquan Smith, and Patsy. Yes, you're taking the shot on the low-owned Seattle stack. I like that for GPPs. Like, Wilson and Metcalf are going to be really, really low-owned. So it's a nice way to differentiate yourself. Good luck, everyone. Yeah, we are at lock, guys. We are at lock. I will try to go over some ownership. Usually it takes a while to load in, but if it comes in the next minute or two, we'll go over it. Otherwise, I'll get out of here. So any last minute questions, throw them in here. Pollard, most fantasy points on whole slate today. Yeah, Tony Pollard is a really, really good running back. He is. I like him. Again, close call there with him and Fournette for me. You could definitely just do that. Like, you got to running back. You got to make some tough calls. But I do really like Tony Pollard. Him, Fournette as the cheap guys, and then at the top again, there's a lot of good options. So running backs where the slate's going to be going to be won today. Watson, Henry, Fournette, Ayuk, Hilton, Hanson, Kmet, Taylor, and the Cards. I like it. I do. You kind of got a Houston stack running back with Jonathan Taylor. You got some high upside guys, obviously, with Henry. Ayuk looks good. T.Y.'s been really solid. Thanks, my man. DK Go. Appreciate that, Cam. NBA video today. Thanks for all your content. Yes, I think I'll have an NBA video later tonight. So be on the lookout for that. I'm traveling today. Going back to Michigan, so probably not going to be up for a while, but maybe later tonight, if not tomorrow for sure, obviously. Yeah, 2-game slate Tuesday. So excited for the NBA regular season. I'll stay in for another minute, guys. If ownership doesn't load in, I'll get out of here. But I want to say again, thank you so much for the support. We hit over 300 concurrent viewers in this one, over 100 likes. So thank you. Cannot say that, guys, enough. And thank you for all the super chatters. Really, super generous of you guys. Yo, DK, let's get some Sunday night picks. Sunday night, let's see. Who's even playing on Sunday night? Let's go to NFL. I honestly don't know. It is... Oh, Browns-Giants? Kind of an ugly game. Obviously, I think both Cleveland backs look pretty good with Hunt and Chubb. All right, let's check ownership one more time. Is it up yet? It is not. So I'm going to call it a day, guys. I do, again, want to thank you guys so much for the support. And again, NBA videos should be up later tonight. I'll have a video up from Monday Night Football show on slate later as well. So a couple videos should be coming up later tonight. Be on the lookout for that. Cash running, Mahomes, Kamara, Fournette, Pollard, Gage, Sanders, Bowden, Kelsey. I think that's fine. Giants and Browns, yeah, kind of an ugly game. Not super excited about it, but I think probably targeting the Browns running game with maybe a wide receiver or two from the Giants. 3 running backs for that game. Yeah, running backs look good, definitely for the Browns. But I'm going to get out here, guys. Again, thanks again. Really do appreciate the support, and I will see you guys all later.